Hello and welcome to the DriveLife podcast, SUK special. I'm here today with podcast regular Sean, podcast regular Josh, now and then.
It's been a while.
And fellow SUK member James Beaumont. Yeah, SUK special podcast. It's December. We're currently at the Motorist with all the Christmas decorations around. So it was a time for a end of year roundup, really. So it's been a good year, hasn't it?
It's been a crazy year. I can't believe how quick it's gone.
I know. We say that every year, but this year's been, with everything else we've got going on as well, it's been, it's crazy to keep on top of. I mean, we've had, in the mix with SCUK stuff, we've had things like going to SEMA for carevents.com and DriveLife, and that was a trip in itself, but that's probably for another podcast.
Yeah, for a whole podcast with SEMA.
But it's been a really busy one. So I think throughout the year we've touched on the various tours that we've done, but the one that we haven't touched on, because embarrassingly we've not done the podcast in probably a bit too long. We've been busy with other stuff, but the main thing we've not touched on yet is Dolomites. So September we did seven days in the Dolomites. It was probably it was a much bigger tour than we used to. It was car transporter. It was flying over instead of driving. It was quite a different format, but it went really well. What did you think?
I think, well, yeah, absolutely. It was 1,000% a great event. But I think for me, what I was just blown away with was I didn't know how good roads could get, and we've been to Europe many times. Swiss Alps, fantastic scenery, but it's just another level, and you cannot put it into words. I know people that have been and they said, you just think, it's just a different road. But Italy and Austria as well, the roads are just unbelievable. The quality of the roads are fantastic, and I mean, to go up a mountain and hit 40 plus hairpins on the way up, and then you've got this pretty much the same on the other side to come back down. It's just roads just don't get better than that.
No, I agree. Well, they don't get better than it, to our knowledge. I guess we have to say that now, because we've done, historically, Switzerland has been one of our go-to places.
Yeah.
Mainly for the Europe tours.
Yeah.
We did France earlier this year, which was a refreshing change, and I was, surprised how good. I knew it was going to be a good drive, but I was surprised how good the Vosges Mountains were. But then to hit Italy and do those roads, when you've driven the Swiss passes, you do think at that point in time, it can't get better than this. And then you go and do the Dolomites. Unfortunately, we had a testing start to the Dolomites tour, didn't we? It was in the news, a once in 100 years snowstorm event, weather event. So we were sat at 10 p.m. at night in Munich Motor World Hotel replanning the route. So that was tricky start. So we ended up.
It was fine. I got 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, it was all right for you, but no car would have made it up Grossglockner.
No.
Watch the, by the time this podcast comes out, the highlights video for SCUK Dolomites will be out, and there'll be a bit of a preview in that in terms of like the webcam footage from Grossglockner and stuff, so you can see how bad it was, considering it was like the 14th of September, so we didn't expect anything like that weather. But we had a testing start to the tour in that we didn't get to drive Grossglockner in the end.
No.
We had to skip out and go down to Italy faster. But once we hit Italy, unbelievable. The roads were incredible. And I'm really looking forward to doing that one again.
It's one of those things you can't put it into words, and it's difficult to kind of communicate across to other people how great it is. Obviously, those that were on the tour,
absolutely, yeah.
Will agree. We've had there was a couple of regulars that had been on the tour as well. They said they've done tours with us, Ireland, Scotland, Europe and everything, but nothing compares to what the roads were like that. And you can understand, yes, it's a little bit further away to travel, and to kind of get there, but the benefits of going there and doing it is just it's a one you've got to do it at least once in a lifetime.
Definitely,
especially if you're a car nut, you love driving. And appreciate the good roads, you've got to do it, so otherwise you're missing out.
Yeah, you really are. I mean, and I know that we didn't even touch on every good road that the Dolomites had to offer. We only did a section of it.
I know.
So the next Dolomites tour we do in 2026 will be probably another reformat of that route to hit even more special roads.
But what I found was interesting is that in terms of getting the start line, I thought I really liked the start point that we had in Munich.
Yep.
It was a great place. Obviously, the Auto World Museum there, and loads of awesome cars on display there as well. But we had 3 or 4 people drove to the start line. Took them a couple of days to do that, but obviously they enjoyed that. They'd had the trip across either on the tunnel or the ferry, and had a couple of days driving through down the Autobahn through Germany and stuff. And so they'd already had a warm up period before they got to start line. Obviously, we time was a bit more conscious to us, a bit more valuable to us really. So we decided to just get the car shipped there. But that was a great experience as well, arriving there and then the cars actually being unloaded on transporter as we arrived from the airport, and it's a great thing to do. And then when we obviously got to the end of the trip, the cars obviously got loaded back on, and then we saw them a couple of days later.
I think it's an important topic to touch on that, because us being the SCUK side of things, being sports and supercar, we're always conscious that there's a wide variety of requirements and budgets and that our members have, and transporting the vehicles was an interesting one to us because we've never done that before. And initially when you look at the cost, you think, oh, that adds a massive chunk onto what is already an expensive tour. And for some people, it's a debate, do I drive, do I transport it, what do I do? But when you sit down and do the math, so it ended up being about it was about £800 each way. It averaged out at to go from Sheffield area to Germany, and then from Italy back to Sheffield. But when you do the maths of £800 each way, when you've got ferry each way, you've got 2 days of your time, 2 days of wear and tear, 1,000 miles each way basically of wear and tear, fuel and everything. Actually, that £800 each way suddenly becomes quite an affordable figure, because if you break down what you'd be spending. And some people liked to extend their trip. It wasn't all about the budget. But like you said, they had a warm-up time of going there and back. And we had one member who ended up going down to the Ferrari factory after the tour. They extended it as well. So there's lots of different reasons for doing it. But I think that this takes us nicely on to just discussing the big tour that we've got coming up for next year, which is the Pyrenees. But when you weigh up the cost of transporting your car, it actually isn't as expensive as it initially looks. So 2025, we're giving Dolomites a break. We're going to do Dolomites every 2 years, and we're going to alternate between Dolomites and Pyrenees as our go-to flagship sort of 7-day, 7-night tour. So Pyrenees is September 2025. Same structure as Dolomites in that you can get your cars transported from. We'll have 2 pickup locations from the north and south area. It'll be Sheffield, somewhere in Sheffield, and then also somewhere down south. And then fly out to, I think this time I'm going to fly out to Balbo, I think it's called. I'm probably getting the pronunciation wrong, but Balbao, and then getting a transfer over to a hotel near Pamplona, and then from there we're driving all across the Pyrenees, up in crossing the border several times into the South France mountains. We're also crossing into Andorra. But that's shaping up to be a really, really good tour. So next year we've got quite a few tours on. Almost all of them have sold out. Pyrenees is selling really well, but we've got a few spaces left on that. But I would say if you're debating it, we can guarantee it will be an incredible experience. And again, there's plenty of options, whether you want to take the ferry down there, which is, I can't remember where it goes. So it goes from like Portsmouth, I think it does. It's Portsmouth to Santander, yeah. Again, that's quite a long ferry. We've opted to, we're all going to fly. Like flights were like 60 quid, aren't they? So like that's a really easy way to get over, and we'll transport the cars over. Again, similar cost, £800-900 each way to get your car over there. But
I know a lot of people have done the ferry and have still been fine.
Yes, yeah.
So.
Yeah, 2 options depending on what your preference is, but yeah, that's shaping up to be a really good tour. I think the roads, from what we can see, and obviously we've got some people involved in the planning who have done that tour themselves and already have done the format of the tour, and it's coming together really well. So if you're looking for a big tour next year, then check out SUK Pyrenees, because I think it's going to be a really good one. So speaking of all things driving tours, today we've got fellow SCUK member James with us.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
All right, thank you.
So I know that you're no stranger to doing driving tours yourself. Obviously, I've done a few here and there, but yeah, I think one of the last, not the last one, but one of the big ones you did this year was in the Italy area as well.
Yes,
With,
we went
I know,
over to Bologna.
Yeah.
In the Diablo.
How was that?
It was a bucket list trip.
Yeah.
I nearly didn't do it because I was going to do another trip instead. But I thought this is a once in a lifetime trip of about 30 Diablos nearly. What was planned.
Yeah.
A few broke down on the trip.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my first question about reliability. It's a big tour to do. How many miles was it roughly?
I think I clocked up roughly 2,500 miles.
Wow.
From Rotherham down to Bologna. A few days driving around.
Yeah.
And then we took a longer route back and we called into Monaco on the way back just for a bit of lunch.
Okay.
And then drove back up through France to the tunnel and back up to Rotherham.
Mm-hmm.
So about 2,500 miles.
Wow.
And it was, you were talking about shipping cars, things like that. I think that works if you're doing a quick little blast around in an area. I think that's the best way of doing it, cost. But I think if you're going to take a long trip down to somewhere and you're meeting in different routes, the drive was epic.
Yeah.
Very tiring, but epic.
So how many Diablos from the UK went on that?
I think the majority was UK cars, and I would say sort of mid-20s.
Wow.
There was a guy from New Zealand who shipped his car over.
Wow.
And he spent quite a few months still in Europe, travelling around. A pair of ladies from Ireland in a 6-litre Diablo. They're still touring around Europe somewhere. And we did this trip in June, so they're still driving around. So they're obviously at the time of their lives.
Wow.
And then there were 3 German cars, I think a French, a couple of Italian cars. So very different parts of the route we all met up. So the first meeting point was Portsmouth, the Channel Tunnel crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then everyone just started to get to know each other. So it was sort of a big trip planning for about a year. Someone down south planned it all and we just sort of tagged in.
How epic is that though? A convoy of 20 plus Diablos all heading in one direction.
It's a sight to see. Yeah. It's bonkers. You're on a motorway in France and, you got, because there were no set route, you just had set meeting locations.
Right, okay.
At different parts of a day.
Yeah.
And it's whatever speed you wanted to do to get there, whether you want to stay in a convoy or break away with another group. So you might have one group of cars doing roughly the speed limit, and then another group will just come flying past and you'll see them in a petrol station a bit later on, then you'll fly past them. And epic. It's just mind-blowing with that many Diablos, the sounds. You'll be filling your car up in a fuel station in Italy and then you'll think, what's that noise coming? And like 5 or 6 Diablos on full chat will come past the fuel station on the motorway. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it until I started to see the photos, because obviously there's a couple of SCUK members with yourself included with a Diablo, and from what I could tell, they were all on that tour.
Yes.
And the photos that we saw looked absolutely amazing.
It was a good trip. The plan was always to go to the Lamborghini factory. That's the main aim.
Yeah.
But we did Pagani. They opened up for us, took us around the workshops.
Oh, wow.
They were a paint process plant. What does all the Lamborghini Uruses and a part of the Aventador. Well, we're Rivalto now. So they do all the paint work. Went to a specialist who do a lot of Lamborghini restorations with older cars. We're electrical outfits. So it were a different thing every morning, every afternoon, with lots of food involved, probably too much food.
Yeah.
So with it all being Diablos, obviously that's where you're obviously heading for in Italy. Things, if it had been a more modern one, you'd have stopped at Germany, wouldn't you, really?
Yes, possibly, yes. We did the Urus production line.
Right, okay.
And obviously you feel it's very Audi.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still as a bucket list trip. It's worth going. Yeah, whatever Lamborghini you've got, or even any nice old sports car, just take it down to Italy and like tours you're doing in the Dolomites. You've got to do it once in your life, travel that way.
And then I saw another member who was on that tour had his the roof of his car signed by one of was it a designer? Was it
Valentino Balboni?
Okay.
The old test driver of Lamborghini.
Oh wow. Okay.
He joined us on a trip once we got into Italy.
Yeah.
And the stories he told were brilliant. He was there when the Countach came out.
Right.
And the Diablos. So he was telling about ones crashing into fields on test drives. So yeah, he's a character.
Yeah.
So you're going around everyone signing autographs and signing your car if you wanted it signing.
So I think we've got a Balboni edition Gallardo in the club.
Have we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I've not seen it before.
Yeah, black and white one.
Oh, nice. Well, I did see as soon as that member got back, his car was up for sale with the including the signature. I thought that was a nice addition. Hopefully, it added a few grand onto the selling price of the car.
At least it made it back. Some didn't make it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we lost. I think 2 didn't make it onto the trip due to they'd been in storage probably too long.
Yeah.
And we were asking about reliability, and I would say if you're planning a big trip and it's a car that's been stood for a long time, put some miles on first.
Sure, yeah.
Too many people in the Diablos who don't use them, and it proved to be a problem.
Yeah.
When like the first day, we'd lost a few cars breaking down with simple technical faults with electric. And luckily, I brought every sensor. I carry spares for everything. So I was swapping relays and taking panels off cars to get into bits and bobs.
So I suppose it's also quite handy because don't you work on your cars yourself?
I try to. I really
Incredible.
do. Try to do everything myself.
Incredible.
You know your car inside out then.
Yeah.
Probably
Incredible.
why I drive mainly old cars, so I can fix them.
Because most people wouldn't dare of that caliber of car. No?
It's just nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just big nuts and bolts, really.
I think when you came to the season opener, you brought the Diablo with you, didn't you?
Brought the Diablo then, yes.
I remember you saying you zip tied the speedometer to the dashboard because you'd not finished rebuilding the dash yet.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, because when I bought my car, I've had it now since 2020, sort of middle of that summer through lockdown. I mean, that's a story in itself, which we might come on to. But it came with a number of faults.
Okay.
And I've sort of made the decision 6 months before the trip, I need to take the dashboard out of this car to get the climate control system working. So I spent quite a lot of time with the dashboard out, fixing things and replacing bits what might go, which luckily my car had perfect aircon all the way through. We're essential.
An important thing to have on a tour like that in June.
Yes, whereas my friend's car, that went the opposite way. The climate system went into fault mode and gave him full heat constantly. So you can imagine in the middle of Italy, nice summery day in a Diablo.
Tell me it was a Spider.
No, SV. Only our club members. Yes, it did get fixed on the trip when it broke down finally.
Did it?
Yeah, we lost quite a few cars in Italy. It's quite funny because one of the Italians puts on a free lunch at a golf resort.
Okay.
But at that golf resort, I think there were 3 stranded Diablos. And he runs a garage repairing Diablos. So he pays for the lunch, basically, what he puts on for everyone.
Right, yeah.
I think he had about 7 Diablos in his workshop by the end of that day.
Expected people
Problem
to stop
solved.
and not leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did a Countach rally the year before, and I think every Countach had to go to his garage for repairs. Always prep your car, always put the mileage on first before you take it on a long road trip.
I think it's important enough to do that for more modern cars. I mean, we know like it's especially things like cars like the McLarens when they're. I mean, we're not talking about McLaren reliability today, but generally most people would say that the McLarens we see that are on the road all the time are the ones that seem to be with the least problems, and that's true for any car.
Yeah.
But we do know that there are a lot of people, I guess in our circle, who are McLarens who just do not drive the car enough, and then they're not doing the car any favours in terms of the reliability issues that follow it around.
Hoses and things that just dry up.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like aircon systems, when people, don't use aircon all winter and then suddenly start using it summer and realise that all the gases are leaked because the seals have gone. It's
the compressor's not being run.
Yeah.
I have a rule. I mean, I've got a few cars now, and if you don't drive them through the winter, every month, sit in the car, fire it up, get it up to temperature, run the climate control, run the electric windows, pop the lights up, just run everything on that car you can.
Yeah.
give it half an hour ticking over, revving it and bits and bobs, and hopefully it'll be all right for the spring.
No, it's important to do. And well, one thing I do like about our club is the amount of cars we have that are not garage queens. We do have a lot that really get put through, get put through their paces every year, don't they? So it's just good to see. But that was your Diablo tour.
Yeah.
I think you've done Italy a few more times this year, especially the factory.
I could put the first trip down to yourselves. You did a sort of test drives with Grey Paul Nottingham Ferrari.
Yep.
And I did a 296 test drive, which was really nice. But I'd like to always just thank, whoever supplies you a car to test drive, just write them a nice email to say thank you very much, really enjoyed it. And basically tried to get it for a weekend afterwards.
Yeah.
So I wrote them a nice email just saying, I'm really interested. I just could do with more time with the car, really. And then the next morning, Monday morning, I got a phone call off marketing at Ferrari Nottingham, and they said, would you like to go to Italy? And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Bit of a shock. I had to think about it, and it took 24 hours, and I'm like, yes, this is a bucket list thing to get invited to Ferrari, drive a 296 round Fiorano test track for a day, go out to the Cavallino restaurant at night with them, and then the Saturday have a Ferrari Roma Spider drive in the mountains, and do the F1 factory tour and the production line tour of the V8s and V6s. That's
money you can't buy experience.
Yeah, when you drive through the gates of Ferrari in a Ferrari bus and you watch everyone else stood outside the gates who was just a tourist, you think, oh, this is really special. You're very lucky to go through them gates. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but to do it for free,
absolutely,
you don't have to buy a car at the end of it.
Just for being nice.
Just for being nice. So my recommendation to any members is always say yes to opportunities what come up.
Yeah. Always
write a thank you letter, and you never know. So I never expected that, and that was 2 weeks before the Diablo tour. And it like, should I do this? I need to be at work.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, I've got to do this. And the person I invited along, my partner couldn't make it, so I invited my brother-in-law to be, and he's a big Ferrari fan.
Yeah,
loves his cars, but he's never really got there to a Ferrari yet. And I remember telling him on the phone, you can come as my +1. And he cried, which I didn't expect.
Yeah. Didn't cry at his wedding.
Yeah. So yeah, he was really happy. And they bumped him up to a driver in the end. Someone else cancelled.
Wow.
So he got to do exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And he just blew his mind. Yeah. I'm a bit more like calm with it because I probably get a little bit used to supercars being around him. But that was his first big experience of the supercars and going to Italy and doing his dream to go to Ferrari factory.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Made his bucket list done.
I do think we get a bit numb to these things, being around the cars so much, and you've got to remind yourself sometimes how special it is, these things. Both the cars and the experiences we get to do as part of them. But speaking of being surrounded by nice cars, I know that there's a couple of cars in your current collection. Do you want to? Well, firstly, actually, how did your interest in cars start? Can you remember? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember obviously saying my first word, but my mum said your first word was car.
Okay, good start.
So I'm guessing that upset him to a degree. Why I said car, who knows? But I just remember always having Matchbox toy cars. So every little bit of money I got was to the local little shop where they sold Hot Wheels and Matchbox toy cars. And
yeah.
I used to make model scrap yards. I don't know if that's normal for a kid, but I remember piling cars on top of each other thinking, if I could only own a scrap yard.
Yeah.
So that was the first memories of cars and things like that, and Lego models and collecting Lego models. When as you get a bit older, you go into Tamiya model radio controlled cars. So my first posters on the walls were all the Tamiya models. So like the Big Wig and the Lunchbox, if you remember them.
I don't, I'm afraid.
Too young.
Too young.
You can still buy them now, new. So that's what I think got me really into cars.
Yeah.
And I remember always wanting a TR7. I remember seeing one go past the house. My dad was like, you don't want one of them. A bit unreliable. And I was like,
they look cool, don't they?
It looked cool back then. I mean, everyone were driving Cortinas and things like that. And Fiesta Mark 1s. And you just think, we're all a bit square. And you see a Triumph TR7 with pop-up headlights and it's a wedge. Because in Rotherham, we never saw a Porsche or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't exist in South Yorkshire.
No.
The nearest I saw exotic car was a neighbour's had a BMW 3 Series from the 80s. And you just think, oh, that's exotic. A BMW. Everyone had Ford or Vauxhall or Triumph, British Leyland products.
Yeah.
So definitely a love of cars. Started early on with toys and things like that. And then computer games with Outrun, Test Drive 2, if you remember them.
Yeah, very much so.
I spent a few weekends ago on a arcade club in Lancashire, if you know that. If you've been.
No.
They've got all the Outrun games.
What, the full
Moving
seats,
cockpit. Moving cockpit.
Wow.
Yeah, Outrun 1.
Wow.
Spent 2 hours in that.
I think Outrun predates me, I think, a little bit. I'm not sure on that. Need for Speed was my kind of era.
Oh, mate, you're missing out.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, Outrun, definitely.
Well, I'm 50, so I'm probably showing my age now with these old computer games with the Commodore Amiga.
Yeah, but that's because it was their Lotus Turbo Challenge.
Yes, Spree Challenge, yeah. You see films like the Cannonball Run, the opening sequence, and you see that Countach.
Well, to be honest, at the time, right, because I obviously we're the same sort of age, and my poster car was a Countach. I just absolutely just loved it. And there were only, I think, maybe 3 or 4 cars that ever got photographed. It was either the black, the white, or the red one.
Yes,
and they were almost like the same cars that was used in different posters and stuff. And that was the thing. You go to the seaside and you get, you can go and buy posters and frame posters of
I remember them,
and stuff. And the Callum, seeing them actually in movies, there was hardly anything, and there's only really, I think, from memory, the Cannonball Run that actually had a Countach in it. That's the only one I know to see one moving. Yeah, and it was in the opening scene, but it was never in the actual film, was it?
It was in the film. The 2 ladies had it who were racing. Yeah, I remember.
But I thought it was just in the open sequence.
It was in the film.
Instead of the film as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we used it in, I think we did 3 Cannonball films, and it were in the opening sequence to everyone.
Yeah.
But I just remember seeing that opening sequence on the TV and just think, what is this car?
Yeah.
Never heard of Lamborghini. Didn't have an idea what one was. You just think, doors will go up.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a spaceship on wheels. And then you play these computer games and you get like, on Test Drive 2, it were an F40 and a Porsche 959.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, these are great looking cars, but you're just never going to see one.
No.
And you watch Top Gear and you see like a Golf GTI, and your dad's like dreaming of getting a Golf GTI, thinking that'll cost him, his entire year's salary or something. And you just think, well, he's never going to get a Ferrari, is he?
No. Again, as a kid, when you go to, Mum used to go to Asda shopping, and I would go straight to magazine rack and just look at the car magazines and stuff and that, and you'd see and a lot of kit cars at the time. Kit cars with Countach was a very popular kit car, and you kind of thought, they look potentially affordable. And it looks exactly the same, but then you see there's so many different variants of them that actually they're significantly not accurate.
I went through a phase of buying kit car magazines, probably mid-teens, before I started driving. I'm thinking, I need a cool car when I start driving. Do I buy a kit car and build one? Or it's knowing which way you're going to go with cars. When I started buying VW magazines and thinking, I'm going to air-cooled scene and things, but I ended up going down a different route.
So what was the first car?
The first car is probably the most important car you ever buy, isn't it? But I bought a Vauxhall Cavalier Mark II CD in brown off my dad. £250. It was rotten, no MOT. He just started a company back then, my dad. So he bought a lot of cheap cars to try to get his company off the ground for sales reps.
Yeah.
And this car got 250,000 miles on.
So that's a family saloon, isn't it?
Hatchback, yeah.
The Cavalier was a hatchback, was it?
They did a saloon version as well, but my dad's were a hatchback.
Okay.
It was rotten sills. I paid about £800 with a Vauxhall dealer, what doesn't exist anymore, called Kirby Central in Rotherham. They replaced the sills, got the car MOT'd, and then I passed my test second time. That was my first car. But to have a 1.8 injection Cavalier was like quite fast for a first time driver. Insurance were on my dad's company insurance.
Okay. That's how you did it.
That was the trick.
So I did it. So I had to pay him a lot of money. £41.20 a week back then as an apprentice electrician.
Yeah.
So a tenner a week in board, and the rest of the money went in petrol and insurance.
But your first engine was a 1.8.
Yeah.
And you've had anything lower than that ever then, no?
Yes. I had to go backwards after that car.
Oh, okay.
Because it bankrupted me. I couldn't earn enough money to run the car. That was a problem. I mean, I learned how to wheel spin in that car really well. So front wheel drive Vauxhall wasn't known for traction. So you could do rolling burnouts all the way up into fourth gear. So
Your
yeah.
dad's old car.
Yeah. I love that
Dad,
car.
I'd be so proud if you could see me.
Yeah, I wish I had a picture of it, but I've got one picture by accident looking through the bay window of our house. But yeah, it was a great car until I sort of ran out of money to keep it going.
Yeah.
So I had to go carless for about 6 months. And once you had that 6 months of freedom, as a 17-year-old, it was so tough. And I had a contracting job as an electrician, so you were up and down the country all the time with 3 or 4 other guys. So you needed a car, and it was difficult to begging for lifts again and paying them petrol money. So I went to a Mini after that, a Mini Fowl.
Okay.
And that was interesting. That was a much more fun car to drive, to be honest. An old Mini. That only lasted 6 months. And then it ended up hitting a brick wall at 5 miles an hour, which bent the entire front subframe.
That's all it took, 5 miles an hour.
5 miles an hour. Coming onto a roundabout,
Yeah.
it clipped a curb with a front wheel, and it just tore the front subframe out of the chassis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it looked beautiful on the outside, but
Yeah.
underneath it was rotten. And I spent most weekends welding it back together for work the next week. So I learned how to weld and sort of just go on fixing my own cars. So every car I used to buy, I bought a Haynes manual.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's taught me how to rebuild engines and just follow a step-by-step guide. So it was like building a Lego model, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get your Haynes manual out, 3 spanners on the top of a page. Oh, it's not too bad a job, this one. It's not a 5-spanner job. So the Mini met its end on a 5 mile an hour curb impact on a roundabout. Being distracted by someone pointing at something. So that was broken for spares. And then I went into a Vauxhall Chevette, which was terrible.
Never ever heard of that car.
They used to nickname them a Shove-It
Okay.
because they were always broken, and it had a 4-cylinder 1256cc engine. It was lovely, 2-door saloon. It got me to work and back just most days.
Was that the car before the Astra?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You had Cavalier Mark 1, Chevette. They didn't do the Astra back then. The Astra came after the Chevette, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of like an E-Reg or something like that. I think that.
Yeah, E88, and I think Chevette were on a late 70s, a 79, I think it might have been. It was in this gone off yellow paint. And I realised I'd bought a car what wasn't cool, and I was a boy racer, so you needed a cool car. And I thought the Mini and the Cavalier did it because they were totally 2 ends of the spectrum, either fast and luxury, or this is a proper race car, got bucket seats and things like that in it.
Something about the 70s is that there were loads of crap colours in the 70s.
Yeah, the Mini was brown.
Oh, this is brown.
And the Cavalier was brown.
Or a ugly mustard, or rubbish colours in the 70s.
But the Chevette, I ended up writing shed down the side of it in aerosol. They sprayed shed down in big letters. And with the other side, I drew an acid face on it because it was yellow. And it got so much female attention. It was unbelievable. I put jump-started air horns on, so it kept me cool to a degree. I couldn't win any races around the town centre, but just for it looking so bad.
Yeah, we've got me car. It's a head turner.
Yes, it was a head turner.
In Rotherham.
Yeah, I remember picking a girlfriend up from Morrison's when she finished the shift, and I got a yellow flashing back light in the window and a big speaker I took out of a stage what I was working on. On a single edge unit, just had an FM and an AM radio. And she was like, "Why are you turning up in this? It's all my work colleagues think you're nuts." Probably am nuts. But yeah, that car just fell apart. I think I sold it for £80 in the end.
Does that include the speaker?
I think I kept the speaker, to be honest, but I never used it. Probably binned it. We were ripping a stage out for electrics, and they went, "Oh, you could keep any electrical gear." I used to collect electrical stuff and just I had an obsession with electronics. So yeah, any speakers, anything electrical, I'd have in a car. So yeah, I think I was the first person probably who might have fit a games console in a car.
Yeah.
I fitted it in my Cavalier. I'd got in the glove box what I cut out. Was it Atari? The first cartridge Atari?
2600.
I think it might have been one before that.
Right, okay.
And I put a black and white 12-volt TV in the dash. And a voltage regulator so I could change voltage settings and things like
This
that.
is Knight Rider before Knight Rider.
Yeah, and we sit in the car park with all the other boy racers and we play computer games like the Space Invaders and Rocket Raid. So everyone thought, wow, that's cutting edge. And then it sort of became a thing about 10 years later. So yeah.
Like the Pimp My Ride sort of era of
Definitely,
cars.
yeah.
Doing it before it was cool.
The thing is a TV screen then, like, you know, it was probably heavier than the engine, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah. My friend bought a Fiat Uno Foul. I remember we fitted a load of fog lights and spotlights to it. And we put in 2 graphic equalizers, several amps. And every time you turn the stereo on, the car'd slow down. You couldn't generate enough electricity to keep the spark going.
That was the thing as well, wasn't it? Because obviously cars didn't have head units as standard, or if they did, they were just little 8-track things.
Yeah.
First thing you did was to pull it out and put in a
Kenwood
a Kenwood or an Alpine or something. But then you get your separate graphic equalizer plug in and all that.
We're all flashing LEDs.
All levels, and nobody could trust those levels.
So
Yeah.
Good old days of boy racing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Chevette went. My dad would be a favourite again. His company were a bit more successful by then. And he had an old Astra Mark II, which was quite new actually, or an 89 plate on a facelift F reg. Metallic blue 4-door. It wasn't cool, but it was modern.
Yeah.
I thought, I need a 5-seater, 5-door car for work. And he said, look, I'll let you buy this off me over a period of like maybe a year. So I'm paying him so much money per month. I didn't want a car loan. Car loans had just sort of come out by then.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I can afford to do that. And I remember it had been stolen recovered. So it had no stereo in. And I got it on Christmas Eve. So I said, I'll take it round the block. It's sort of late night.
Yeah.
It was a bit frosty and I crashed it straight away. Yeah, I got my headphones plugged in and a Walkman, listening to probably Tiffany or something like that. And I was thinking...
Did you think you're alone now?
Yes, I did. It felt alone when I crashed it straight after that. I just remember taking this corner around the block probably far too fast. And it was covered in black ice, which I didn't know. And I think, I've lost control of this. And I remember it going backwards at a rate of knots across the road. And I think, there were no parked cars there. And I got my foot on the brake and it just went up in the air, then stopped solid and dropped. I thought, I've hit something airborne with the rear of a car. Mm-hmm. So I just looked and a guy stood at the other side of the road walking his dog, looking a bit shocked. And I just put in first gear and just wheel spun off. I didn't want to even look.
I thought you were going to tell us you landed on the guy with a dog.
No, thank God. No. Luckily, I've never injured anyone in a crash. And I got back home, parked on my drive, got out of the car, went to look at the back of the car, thinking it would be caved in. Not a mark. Couldn't see anything. Mm-hmm. I think, right, just go in, pretend it didn't happen, go to bed, get up early Christmas morning, ran outside when I did get up, and I saw a little brown line on the centre of a bumper. And I think, that's strange. What did it hit? Leave brown line. Looked underneath the car, the entire boot floor had gone. It had shoved the spare wheel back into the boot area of the car and popped all the boot floor up and crushed all the structure behind the plastic bumper in. Mm-hmm. It looked like it hit a telegraph post, so I went back, walked around the block, and it had hit a telegraph post about 3 foot up in the air. There was a nice mark where I slid down it. But that saved me from going through probably someone's garden into a house.
What has happened? The plastic bumper
It just popped back
at it, right?
And luckily, because it were at an angle, the boot lid never took it.
Yeah.
But everything behind the bumper and underneath the bumper took the impact. Mm-hmm. So I sort of sledgehammered it back into shape and ran that car for 4 years and put another 100,000 miles on it. Mm-hmm. But it always had a weird pop issue when you went over a bump with more than 3 people in the car. The floor would pop in and out in the back of the car. I'm like, what's that noise? And it'd be like, pop, 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 pop. Every time we went over any undulation in the road, I obviously bent something quite badly in that car.
So have you ever listened to Tiffany since then? Or?
Oh, it's a great song, that. Everyone should have it on.
At what point did your dad find out about it?
I never told him.
Oh, well, yeah, it's the first for everything.
I learned hard way on the first car. I mean, the Cavalier Mark II, I crashed that after about 5 months. And that's probably the reason I had to get rid of it. Is I went down a dead end street, probably far too fast in boy racing mode late one night, and then thought, well, I need to reverse back down here, and we're reversing back at far too fast a speed, missing all the cars, and there was a transit van stuck out about half a foot more, and we just went straight into the front end of that. So I had to go home and tell my dad. We didn't have mobile phones back then, so it was literally, I rang him from the person's house whose van it was, because the entire street came out and mobbed us. We're in a really rough area of Rotherham. And they said, you're not going anywhere until we sort this out. So I rang my dad, and it wasn't insurance. The look of that was covered, but he wasn't happy. And I remember coming in, and he'd set the kitchen table up with his desk light. He'd gone in his office and got his desk light and set it up, so he just had a spotlight on him.
Interrogation mode.
It was, yeah. He said, his chair's at that end of the desk.
Yeah.
You sit there.
He'd gone out and got a special lamp.
He did, yeah.
For the conversation.
Yeah. And I said, can my friends? And he said, send your friend home. So I had to send my friend home. We had to walk home. And he sat me down and just talked to me sternly. No shouting. And he says, you will not be on my insurance after tomorrow. And that was it. So I had to sell that car after I couldn't afford the insurance. It was too much. Yeah. And back then it was, I think, £800 for me to insure it myself. I mean, now people pay a lot more for the kids to insure cars. But that was more than my wages for like several months.
Yeah.
So it had to go. I had to have 6 months of actually saving money up to buy a car cash, hence a Mini. But the Astra, he did me a deal on that, and I had to pay for my own insurance. But I could put it through his works. So it wasn't on his insurance, but it was like a separate policy through work. But occasionally he'd forget to renew it for me. And I'd get pulled up by the police, and they'd be like, oh, you've got no insurance on this. And I'm like, oh, I have. And then I'd speak to my dad the next morning, and they'd be like, oh, I'll check. Oh, no, I forgot. But he'd luckily got a deal with insurance, and they'd backdate the letters. So they'd say, oh, yeah, you did have it at the time. So I got away with it, luckily, every time. But yeah, taught me a lesson. Do everything yourself. Don't rely on your parents.
Oh, there's nothing worse than having to like tell your parents something, especially when it's something like car related.
Yes.
I remember like when I'd moved out and got my first house, and then I thought everything was safe, but then I hadn't updated my driving license to my new address. And then my first ever speeding fine came through to my mum, and she opened it. So that was a great morning as well. So she was delighted about that. But yeah, there's nothing worse than having to tell your parents that you've done something wrong in the car. I've
never had kids, hence probably why I've got the cars. But I know my friends who've got kids, they just worry constantly about the kids driving. And whereas I think my parents were like, you go out, you drive, if it happens, as long as it's not on our insurance, we're not too bothered.
Yeah. My daughter's 5, but she's grown up around, I guess, the types of cars that I'm driving, and she's already very accustomed to driving fast. So I'm very afraid about how fast she's going to try and be when she first passes. But we'll see. Maybe she'll be driving in a completely autonomous car by then. You never know, really. See how it develops. Still got another 10 years to go.
Looking for your next car event, club, or venue? Find it with carevents.com. Discover thousands of upcoming events, car clubs, and car venues on the world's biggest car events platform. Search by location and radius, favorite your events, buy event tickets with these, and follow your favorite clubs and venues to be the first to hear about their upcoming events. For event organizers, you can list events, clubs, and venues free of charge, sell tickets directly in the app, and track the performance of your event. Available online and in your app store. Just search Car Events.
So after those few starting cars, where
well, I had to do a list. I had to sit down. When you asked me this question for this podcast, I thought, what cars have I actually had? I know most of them, but I had to go through a long list.
Yeah.
Because I did go through a lot of cars in the early days, because they kept breaking, I kept crashing them. So while I had the Astra Mark II, I bought an Astra Mark 1 as well for something different. Because I always wanted an Astra Mark 1 GT, so I bought that. I ran it for about a year on side by side with the Astra Mark II, and sold both cars eventually, because I got a company van then. So I went through a period of having a company van. So I went into motorbikes. So I bought think my first motorbike I bought were a GPZ Kawasaki 600.
Okay.
Probably too big for my first bike. Did a crash course.
I don't know much about bikes, but it sounds fast.
It wasn't the right bike to learn on.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were changing the law, so they were going to restrict people what bike size engines they could have and horsepower.
So was this before the 125?
Yeah, you have to do a CBT still. So we did a test in the morning, a CBT, which crashed through a tree line in the car park.
You don't get extra points for that then?
No, they said I were practicing emergency stops in the car park, and I ended up leaving it too late and went straight through a set of conifers into a wire fence. So they had to pull me out of that. And lucky that weren't on the actual test itself. Then on the following day, you did a full bike test, which got you onto whatever size engine you want, which you can't do now, I don't think.
Right, okay.
So my friend bought a GPZ 600, but he'd been brought up on bikes. So he says, this is a good bike, but it wasn't right for me. So I sold that, bought a Yamaha TZR 250, two-stroke, which taught me how to ride.
Yeah.
A totally different way of riding. And then I went on to an FZR 400, which it just was brilliant. You could get your knee down on every corner. You could scrape the fairings. You could, like every roundabout, you just go around 4 or 5 times. It were amazing. So I came really good at getting my knee down on the right hand side, but I could never get my left hand knee down. You just didn't have a roundabout you could practice on going the opposite way around.
Here's Rotherham, you never know.
Well, yeah. I mean, late at night, we did do some daft things on the motorbikes. And I survived that. And after a few friends got badly injured on motorbikes, I thought, I need to go back to cars. So looking at the list, I went to, what was it now? I bought a Ford Cortina Mark V to go banger racing.
Okay.
So I nearly went into banger racing.
That's what colour that one was.
It was a horrible beige colour. You just guessed it. Yeah. We called it the Shiddly Beast for some reason. I don't know why, but we did some graphics on it, and we never got to race. My dad made me scrap it in the end. And while I was running the Astra in the company van, I really wanted a Triumph GT6 or Triumph Dolomite Sprint, because I thought, other boy racers driving Mark 1 and Mark 2 Fiestas and Escorts and stuff like that, RS Turbos, Cosworths. I thought, I want to be different. I'm going to go down the Triumph route and build something old school, tune the engine up.
Yeah.
I'll be able to race them around the town centre better. So I bought a Triumph GT6 Mark III, and then started to restore it over a 10-year period. So I'll be about 19, 20 now. And it took me till I was 29 to get that on the road.
Wow.
But we'll come back to that. But yeah, and I swapped the motorbike for a Cavalier Mark III 2-litre.
Okay.
My friend had just rebuilt from a body shell because he wrote it off previously. So I bought one of the last body shells. So I bought this car, finished it off basically.
What was the last of the Cavaliers, was it that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then it went, I can't remember.
Vectra.
Vectra, yeah. It went Vectra. That was a good car. And I sold that back to the person I swapped the motorbike. It turned out he had finance outstanding on it. And I ran it for a year, and then when I tried to sell it to someone, it turned out he still had owed finance. So he bought it back off me, and I got the motorbike back and flogged the motorbike. And then I went into a Renault Traffic van for practicality.
Yeah, okay. Which is also known as 3 other different brand names as well.
Yes, yeah. It was the early one. I remember the alternator falling off while I was driving it on the motorway. That was terrible. And then I started my own business then. I went for a period of time with no cars apart from this Triumph I was restoring over a 10-year period. So I was getting company vans, and I went through quite a lot of like vetoes with that company, Renault Traffics. And I thought, right, I'm going to do my own company. I'm going to go into doing stair lifts. That's what I used to do after being an electrician. So the only vehicles I ever bought new were vans. So I bought 3 Vitos in the early days. So I had like Mark 1 Vitos, really good van. And I had a long wheelbase travel liner. So it stopped me from buying really cars at that point. When you're running your own business, all the money went into vans and trying to keep that business going. But once I could afford a car again, it was basically I bought a Land Rover Defender. Took it apart from being a van, turned it into a pickup truck, put external roll cages on it, air locking differentials, massive tyres, suspension lifts, twin winches.
The full job.
Full job, welded all the air intake systems up, moved all the electrics up into the roof, and ended up doing winch challenges all around UK and Europe.
Yeah.
So I went into that into a big way for about 4 years.
Snorkel kit and all that, then,
Yes. Yeah. So you could sit underwater for like hours in that thing. Because
Wow.
I'd literally welded the airbox up, tested it for leaks and everything. All the electrics were out of the dashboard up in the roof lining. Did some really good competition work with that. But it got too competitive. Professional teams came in the end with big budgets, and you needed hundreds of thousands to compete. And I dropped out of that. Sold that. I bought a TD5 Defender then from the guys who made the chassis. I swapped it for some solar panels basically because I was doing solar panels at the same time. And then sold that and went into a 130 crew cab Defender XREF van. Because I thought it'd be good for doing solar panels and travelling around the UK, fitting solar panels on farms and things like that. So we're like doing stair lifts one day of a week in a van, and the next day we're doing a solar panel installation. So we were like, I needed more vehicles. And then I got the Triumph GT6 on the road then.
Okay,
And that was built around doing European road rallies. So I thought I wanted a car with a roll cage. I wanted a bigger than a 2-litre engine. Originally they came with a 2-litre straight six. I think they were like 90 horsepower. So I had this to a 2.5 with triple Webers on and extractor manifolds and special cylinder heads and cams. And so I started doing like track days and road rallies and that. And that was good fun. And then that car died in Belgium. Had a head-on crash at 100 mile an hour into another car.
Well, the car did, or was it the driver?
No, just a car, thank God.
Oh.
Everyone made it through that crash. Myself and my co-pilot, and it was a Seat Ibiza, what we tore a front end off. With 3 young lads in, they'd pulled out of a junction at midnight, and I went straight through them. Took their engine block out of the car and everything. We didn't have time to hit the brakes, because I had a 70-odd-year-old co-pilot in the car with me. And we just lost the sibbies on the stage before, and he says, "Oh, we've got the sibbies working now. Are you going to have a push on? We might win this." And I went, yeah, well, let's do it. And we were on the road, and you weren't meant to be racing, but we were overtaking another rally car, overtaking parked cars on the wrong side of the road, and the car just pulled out of a junction, and we had nowhere to go at about midnight through this village. And we just ripped its entire front end clean off. Blocked the road off, blocked the rally. Police turned up. They didn't seem to worry about anyone because everyone was okay, so they were like, let's just get the cars out of the way. I luckily rang the insurance company straight away and got it recovered to their yard in Europe somewhere at a Mitsubishi garage. The police wanted to recover it, but I thought, I don't want them recovering the car. I'll never see it again. And we went back the following weekend and recovered the car, and it was quite bad. The bonnet had come through the windscreen, also come through the passenger window, cut the A-pillar in half and wrapped around the roll cage, about a foot in front of the driver's co-pilot's face. The dashboard had collapsed onto his legs. And all we got was little cuts on his legs. We had no whiplash injuries, no other injuries other than that.
The roll cage pretty much saved your life.
If it wasn't for the roll cage, it would have probably been dead, especially the co-pilot. So in old cars, I always recommend a roll cage and harnesses. And that was interesting. So that changed my trajectory then on cars, because I was always Triumph. I was never going to sell this car. I'd spent 10 years building this car and done loads of rallies and things like that. So I thought, Lotus Colton, that's what we're going to use the insurance money on. So I went straight into buying a Lotus Colton. I still got that today.
It's a very strong choice.
I still got it. It is broken, as usually a Lotus is. So I bought a Lotus Colton from a guy in Ipswich.
They've maintained their reputation as being a cool car since the day they came out, haven't they? Especially now. They're quite sought after now.
The police have some for a while.
They trialled one Lotus Colton. They never used them. They had Senators, which were a 3-litre Senator. I remember being pulled over many times by a police Senator. Really fast 3-litre, 24-valve straight sixes. And I always wanted a GSI 24-valve Colton. It was like, the car, but then they talked about the Lotus Colton, the only car what Parliament ever debated about banning in the UK.
And
you thought, I've got to have one.
Ever made, don't we, I think.
Officially 177 mile an hour, unofficially 192 from the test engineers in the book we wrote afterwards. And I could vouch for that sort of speed.
It's a big family car.
I'd nicknamed mine the Death Ship. It tries to kill me constantly. I have so many near misses where I've nearly killed myself in that car. It is constantly sideways, the front end doesn't grip. If you come into a corner, it just understeers, so you have to pivot the back end out, and then it's trying to spin around on you. But it's such a car to drive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a luxury barge, supersonic barge, you used to call them.
Am I right in saying that that's a special car as well?
I mean, they're limited. I mean, they made 950. I think the original we were going to make 1,100 for the world, but we made 950 because of a recession in 92, what happened. And they couldn't sell them. I mean, I know a few car dealers from that time, they were buying them up cheap from Vauxhall because they just couldn't shift them at £50,000 back in 1992. It was the price of a house.
They didn't have really the kind of the same clout behind them as like, you know, the Cozzies and stuff.
No.
So, you know, and that's probably that's the thing. It's probably more of a marketing thing, really, wasn't it?
I mean, if it was probably a Porsche, Ferrari or a Ford, it would have sold much better.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a lot of the people who bought the ones, I still know have got them from new. They're all either engineers or company directors. And then, you know, we remortgaged a house to buy them. And so I always thought, yeah, one day if I could. I've just been paid out like 15,000 on a crash. They're up sort of around 20,000 when I was looking in sort of 2010. And I saw one in Ipswich, went down to view it. It didn't feel right, the car. It didn't drive very well. The kid were living in a terraced house. It was parked on the street. I said, I'll give you 10,000 for it. And he said, no. So we went away. We had lunch. And I said, I'll ring you before we leave Ipswich. Because I don't want to, you know, you to miss this opportunity of having some money in your pocket. And I offered him 10.5 before we left, and eventually went, come and get it. So we drove away, and we looked quite upset. And I remember going up the A1, and the 3-figure mark, thinking, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Even though I pulling to one side, it didn't seem to boost correctly. So I spent a couple of years going through that car, learned a lot about that sort of era of car then in the 90s, sort of with vacuum pipes everywhere and more controls from ECUs instead of carburetors, and got that car working perfectly for about 10 years. It was a fun car. And while I had that car, I bought a Range Rover Classic. I got sick of the Defenders, bought a Range Rover Classic, and I'd sort of collected nearly about 8 TR7s. So I just got obsessed with TR7s for some reason.
So are you stacking these in the junkyard sort of setup, or by this time have we got some sort of bigger? 2008,
I live in a 2-bed semi-detached house, which I didn't pay a lot of money for. I paid £50,000. So I built on the back garden a 10 by 10 metre garage, and a kit for about 12,000 quid. And the neighbours, well, wasn't impressed, but it got the cars off the drive, because at first I had a little single prefab garage for the Triumph.
So this is a bigger square footage than your house?
Yes, it's bigger than the house, yeah.
Exactly the way around you should do it. Exactly the way around.
My partner says, you know, as long as you don't take all the garden.
Yeah, I'm going to let you this much space.
And I kept moving the stake where I'd have to put stakes in the garden where she knew the garage was going to be up to.
Kept shifting it.
So I kept shifting it when she wasn't looking. So yeah, we built it 10 metres by 10 metres, 4 metres high. And I put like a 4-post lift in there to work on cars. So I'd got the Lotus Colt in there. I'd ended up with all these TR7s, but they weren't at my house. I think I had about 4 or 3 at my house, one on the trailer, like old Tony Pond replicas. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 replicas that were all identical in paint schemes, and my partner never realised. So she went down the drive one day and I got them all out at once. She's like, I thought you only had one of these. No.
Just a few.
I had a couple at my friend's barn. So I slowly sold them off over time. I sold one to a guy in Switzerland who turned into a proper rally car. I ran one for about 8 years as like a competition car for doing like track days and sprints and hill climbs. I sold that eventually. I sold a couple of body shells, what I had, to a guy in South Africa who was making Group B rally cars. I sold one to my friend who we did trialing, off-road trialing in. We converted to like off-road work. So we jacked it all up and put bash plates underneath it and things like that.
So dare I ask, what's in the current garage then now? What's that made up of?
Well, I've done a list for that because I sometimes forget. So I went through some other cars, just sort of reel them off quickly for you because it'll go on forever. I bought a Lotus Senator, if you've ever heard of it, but only one ever made.
No, never heard of that. Well, we'll put some photos up in the edit afterwards.
Yeah, I'll send you some photos.
For people to see.
There's a book, what they did for the Lotus Carlton, the engineers were interviewed, and the plan was to make a Lotus Senator before the Lotus Carlton. Mm-hmm. It never happened, so a guy in the club built a Lotus Senator himself. Wow. So I bought that, I ran it for about a year, flogged it to a guy in Ireland. He's fixed a load of issues with it, and he's still running it now. I think he's a disabled athlete, so he needed an automatic, so it was an automatic. The Lotus Carlton engine, it drove beautifully. Love that car. Porsche 944 Turbo S, then a Porsche 944 2.5, Audi Quattro UR Turbo, Audi 80. I was building an Audi rally car Group B replica, but I sold that through lockdown. I never finished the project. Then I bought a couple of Ferrari 456 GTs. Okay. That was my first Ferrari. Bought it sight unseen from an auction by accident. Sort of thing. Yeah, you do. I went to buy a BMW 8 Series, like a late 90s one. And it was terrible. So we went in person to Brooklands, then we drove home and did telephone bidding. I remember bidding on the BMW, and it went way beyond what it was worth. It went probably double what it was worth. So I just said to the guy on the phone, I said, look, the Ferrari what went through early, it didn't meet reserve. Can we do a deal? And he says, no, you missed your opportunity. And then I think I was in bed about 10:30 at night, and my phone rang Saturday night, and I thought, it's Brooklands, they're ringing me. And I went, you're interested in Ferrari? The guy wants to get rid of it. It's a dealership, Aston Martin dealership. It's been sat on their compound for a year. Do you want it? So I said, well, as long as there's no fees involved, we did a deal at 35k. And I thought, oh God, I bought a Ferrari. Shit. What do I do? As you do. No idea if it works.
Ferrari for 35k.
Yeah. And I thought it's one of my favourite Ferraris, a 456, if you know what model that is. 2+2, 90s saloon car. I mean, there's a great video from Jeremy Clarkson online. It's just an epic V12 front engine Ferrari from the old days. Yeah. I remember picking it up and filling it up for the first time. It was empty or on fumes, and I got to like 90 odd litres of petrol, and it was still going, and I thought, it's got to be a leak. So I stopped filling it up. I looked at the car, and I thought, no, I'll just drive it, and got it home. It had every warning light on the dashboard lit up. But it drove mechanically fine, but it just felt it wasn't running right. I thought, it's going to be easy to fix. It's got to be. And I tend to fix cars best by thinking about it sat in the car. I think logically, how does this car work? And I tracked it down to all the plugs on the wiring loom on the engine bay all turned to green fur. So contact cleaner, bit of a Dremel, cured everything. Really? I've done some YouTube videos how to reset ECUs on them now and how to fix it a little. And it ran fine for a year, that car, then after that. The fuel tank's 110 litres, I did find out in the end.
I was going to say.
So no leaks. Wow. Good.
Yeah, it's a big tank and it drinks fuel. Yeah, I bet. Epic car. Sold that and bought another one. And sold that one and made some more money on that. I started making money out of cars then. This is good. I'm making £4,000 or £5,000 a car just by buying a car you love and driving it for a year and flipping it basically. So after them, I bought a couple of Venturis. So I bought a Venturi 300 Atlantique Turbo, if you've heard of one of them.
I haven't.
No?
No.
I'm surprised. French
Even Josh hasn't. Josh's car knowledge is really good.
Yeah. Late 80s and 90s, the French company making cars called Venturis. With like a 200, a 260, a 300. They're basically on the horsepower of the engine. So we use a Renault PRV engine, 3 litre V6. So I had one of them, sold it, then bought a twin turbo, one or two right and drives, sold that to a guy in Athens who put it in a museum because they were a Venturi dealer back in the 90s. Oh. Made a bit of money on both of them. Because at this point, I mean, 2019, I had sort of 19 cars. It was ridiculous. They were all broken. None of them working hardly. So I've sold all the race cars off, all the TR7s. Yeah. Sold the 2 Ferraris, sold the Venturis. I'd bought, just before then, a 996 C4S manual in yellow.
Nice. Very nice.
And I bought that on a good deal through Porsche because the sales manager got caught having an affair with a girl upstairs, and his wife didn't know he had this car. So the parts guy rang me and said, "Do you want to buy a Porsche? And it needs to be cash, quick." So,
They're the kind of car deals you want.
yeah. So I paid.
We've got the sales manager affair special on today.
Exactly. I remember doing the deal in the Porsche showroom, paying cash. I got to carry a bag of cash, paying the sales manager in cash over this little table, and there's other people looking at brand new Porsches, and I'm doing a deal on this old 996. So yeah, I couldn't believe
Great car though.
Great car. I mean, it was because that was just before I did the Ferrari, so it was like to spend £15,000 on a car in a one fit, and you don't know, you never owned a Porsche. That was, I've got a Porsche 911. I think, you got to remember, as you build up through these cars, every car as you go up is like a stage in value and specialness. It's so exciting. I remember having friends coming around to look at it. "You've got a 911. I thought, I made it. This is it. You can't get better than a 911.
Another poster car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in yellow. And I sold that fairly quick because I got scared of the engine breaking on it. I put about 10,000 miles on it a year and flipped it for 22,000 to a dealer. And I just bought, before I flipped it, a 996 turbo sight unseen. The prices were going quicker up than I could afford.
Yeah.
They've gone from like late 20s into like mid 30s, and then you could see them going up to 50 grand soon. So I sent this guy in Aberdeen the money. I just wired him the money, drove up there in the Range Rover, put it on the trailer, and realised the car was bigger than the trailer. It overhung the trailer, and I couldn't get the back of the car on where the engine is because I had a tyre rack on. So the engine overhung the back of the trailer. And then I realised, going onto the motorway after 40 mile an hour, it just
It's
got...
going to start snaking, isn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
I couldn't do more than 40. So the Range Rover Classic won't go into fourth gear until you do 50. So it was stuck in third gear all the way back from Aberdeen. I went through like 4 tanks of petrol. I ran out near Edinburgh. Why didn't I just fly up there and drive it back? So that was
dedicated.
I think that was nearly a 48-hour round trip in a Range Rover Classic.
Yeah.
And I got back home, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning, and we're booked to do a road trip in Ireland in the 996 C4S. And my partner went nuts because she says, "You haven't been to bed for 2 days now." And I was like, proper wired. Been on Red Bull for like 2 days solid. So yeah, I'd fly up there next time. So yeah, I sold that 996 turbo, lost money on that one through early part of lockdown because I put a lot of mileage on that one. And then I thought, right, I've sold all these cars. I made a little bit of money. What do I get? I thought, your poster car. Just get one car. So I kept the Lotus Column, kept the Range Rover.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to get a Diablo. And that's the first proper supercar I think I ever bought, was a Diablo. So I bought a 1996 Diablo SV.
What a car to, what a supercar, first supercar to start with.
Quite a jump.
It is. And I sort of blame sort of Cannonball running the past for Lamborghini V12s and just obsessing over them. And once I started deciding late 2019 to sell the car collection off and get down to like maybe 3 or 4 cars, what I could actually fix and maintain. But I'm making all this profit. I've got all this money back. I might as well just buy the supercar of my dreams. And Harry's Garage videos did a Lamborghini Diablo. And he said his friend bought this car and he said, "This is the only car you ever need in your life." He sold all his modern stuff. I thought, this is it. Get this instead of whatever else I could buy a modern, because I was looking at McLarens and Ferrari modern things. But the Diablo is the one.
Yeah.
And I looked at a few, I couldn't get the deals right. And I rang a dealer in Scotland called Top Gear Cars, Carlo. And I said, "You sell these cars?" Everyone says I should ring you and you give me advice. We might have one for sale. And he says, "I've got a couple for sale." It's too much money. You want 200k for them? He says, "I'll knock you 40k off this yellow SV." And I'm like,
It's quite a discount.
that's a big discount. But
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the first, I'd say, 3 months of COVID.
Yeah.
And I think everyone panicking, this is life's
Yeah,
over,
sure.
never going to
Yeah,
sell
yeah.
a car again. So I went up to Scotland through lockdown. I shouldn't have done in the 996 Turbo, viewed the car, and you have that moment when your heart and your stomach goes. I saw it and I went, this is the car I've got to buy it no matter what. And it was a weird buying experience. He wouldn't let you drive it, wouldn't let you fire it up. He says, "I'll promise you this car will work when you pick it up." And you just sat in it and you think, this is a Diablo. Yeah, this is the one. Bright yellow, the SV up the side, light beneath, the speed, hot pursuit, front cover. It was the ex-Lamborghini press car from 96, the first SV in the UK. I think it's one of the first SVs made in the first 15 batch in 96. And it was the Alpine stereo car as well, so it had all the subs and speakers and all the GPS, satellite navigation, everything from
it. Done in speakers then.
Yeah, it had loads of. You need a lot of speakers in one of them. So yeah, I bought that and I drove it back, and I remember driving that back from Scotland in a slight drizzle like this morning on empty roads, and you're doing 140 mile an hour, and in the rain, and you just think this car is epic.
Yeah.
And he rang me when I got home. He says, "Did you make it back all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I remember him saying, he says, "I've lost 2 customers driving these cars home. Just can't handle them." And it's not a lot of power, 500 horsepower, but it's way it delivers it. It's old school. There's no traction control. There's no limited slip diff. It will kill you if you get it wrong.
Hence the name.
The Devil. Yeah. And it's still in the collection now. It's an epic car. It's just, what a special car to drive. So after that, I thought I'd done with cars. I thought you've got the Lotus Carlton, the Range Rover Classic for towing, the Diablo.
It's a sickness. You're never done with cars.
No. And then you in a few weeks, you're on Auto Trader, piston heads and Facebook Marketplace looking for cars. I bought an SL 60 AMG then. I needed a convertible in my life.
Okay.
I bought a 1997, one of the 49 we made, 6 litre V8.
Beautiful car.
I've had that now about 4 or 5 years since I got the Diablo. Put 10,000 miles on it. It's a great car, but it's 90s electronics, and there's a lot of electronics. You compare it to the Diablo, what's pretty much the same age. Mercedes is just full of electronics, and it does everything better, but you've got to keep these electronics working. So that's the problem with Mercedes, I think, for that age. So that's probably going to go out of the collection soon now. It's going to be, it is up for sale now. I need to go into something more modern to knock around. That's my knock around car. And then I bought a Noble M600 because I'd never been in a supercar club, and I got invited to join one. I tried to do an early morning drive, and you know how quick these early morning drives can be. And in a Diablo in the rain in October, I realised I can't keep up with a single modern car in it. It's too dangerous. It's sliding off the road. It's spinning.
A serious car to be driving in that manner.
And they all gave me cred for trying to do these early morning drives in the car. So I switched to the Lotus Carlton straight away to do the drives, which everyone loved because it was sideways for every section of road. And it were on its limits. Hence why it's broken now. The head gasket went on a drive one. So I thought, I need a more modern car, what's faster, what's capable to do the supercar stuff. But I didn't want to go flappy paddle. I didn't want all the computers. So I went Noble M600, which probably was a wrong decision to try to keep up with people. But you just had no traction, but more power. And I've still kept that car. I love that car for driving. It's a proper driver's car. Manual gearbox, no ABS, no real assist in anything other than it has an ignition cut if it detects a little bit of wheel spin. But you're on your own in that thing.
But it wasn't just any Noble 600, was it?
The press car from, Noble had it for years as a press car. It used to be sort of dark grey with a red interior and black. And then it got painted blue for Geneva Motor Show. And then it went on Top Gear for the Italian trip. I think season 18, episode 1 with Hammond driving the car. And I think he crashed it at Imola. And every journalist has drove it. It's well known. Then I've had it uprated in power. It's running about 740 horsepower now, straight through exhaust.
So did you know about the history of the car before you bought it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like a car with a history. Good or bad, because I think it gives it character. There's no point having a car that's not exciting with story. You want a backstory to your car, I feel. So like rare, obscure cars, what no one's ever heard of, like Venturis. You get that cred when you can't afford an F40, but you got a Venturi at £30,000. Everyone stood around with Venturi. That's why my brain picks cars from my Top Gear era out of my head. I also bought a Renault Alpine A610 Turbo.
Okay.
So I've had that in the collection for a little bit now, and that's getting converted to a twin turbo setup.
Well.
Get a little bit more power.
Mm-hmm.
That's some bright yellow with pop-up headlights as well, so that's cool. That should be on the road hopefully maybe end of this year, maybe next year. Depends how long it would take to restore it. What else did I buy? But then after the Noble, I decided I needed a wet weather car for doing tours. Something with a bit of ABS. So I bought a 430 Scuderia, so I call that my winter car. Which makes people laugh in the club.
And that is a beautiful car, is that? I've seen it before, but yeah, it's a very nice one.
An accidental buy again, because I wanted a 512 TR.
Okay.
Testarossa for most people. And I test drove one. I did a deal to buy it. We got the price right, but I needed to sell one of the other cars out of the collection to do it, and I couldn't sell it quick enough for the 4, 5, 6s when I was getting rid of everything. And I missed the opportunity on that 512. And they only did about 100 right and drives. And I don't want a cream interior. Most of them are cream interior.
Yeah.
I didn't want a yellow one. I didn't want a black one, so it had to be red or blue or green. And then the Scuderia I'd been watching all the time, been up for sale for a year. Ex-Frankie Dettori's car. So it was a really good spec. And because it's small, it had medium bucket seats, where all the Scuderias usually have large bucket seats. And I wanted a medium because I'm quite small. And it had harnesses, which were, it must have a harness. It must be in Rosso Scuderia colour. I wanted gold wheels, gold stripe.
Yeah.
And it disappeared off market just as I missed out on the 512 TR. And I thought, oh, that's a shame. And then I did a breakfast meeting at a Ferrari garage in Wilmslow. And a guy had a black Scuderia there, and he didn't know me, and I was just talking how nice his car. And he says, "Here's keys, take it for a spin." I'm like, "Really? It's raining. You do not know me." He says, "I'll come with you." I just remember pulling out the car park, full throttle, gear changes, sideways in race mode. And I'm thinking, this is a driver's car. This will be my wet weather car to replace the Noble when I feel the Noble's too much for the drives. So I bought that. It came back up for sale, this one I've been watching in New York. Bought it privately. And I've still got that. That's a great car, that. We've just done a total suspension refresh on that one now. And then, while COVID was going on, a guy rang me up and said, "Do you want to buy the Lotus Carlton Estate?" So I bought the Lotus Carlton Estate then. With a friend of mine, we went halves on it.
I didn't know they did an estate.
They didn't officially. There's some rumours that said they were going to make 100 of them, but I don't think there was. I have not found any evidence. Some people.
So is this one that somebody's made then?
Yeah, they took
right, okay.
a Vauxhall Carlton Estate, repainted it Imperial Green, and then put the entire Lotus Carlton running gear into car. And the guy did quite a good job, actually. I mean, because the body kit doesn't fit straight away. You've got to cut the body kit around and extend it and alter it for the tailgate. But basically, from the B pillar forward, it is a Carlton, same as the Lotus Carlton. But it's cool because you can put a dog in the back or chest of drawers and move it around fast. So that's my reason for buying that car. It's good for moving things around in.
Yeah, everyone's got you saved in their phone as the guy who won't say no. Yeah, anytime they want to shift a special car,
if it's a rare car and it's broken.
So you do all the URL speedystairlifts.com.
Yeah. So that's taken 4 years now, probably to get it on the road because it came with a lot of faults. So I've fixed nearly everything on the car now. We've got a few faults we're going to fix early next year.
Yeah,
and that'll be probably at some of your events, and I'll probably use it.
Brilliant.
Sort of like more of the static stuff.
Yeah.
It'll want to kill me if I drive it fast like the other one. I've still got the Range Rover Classic now. What else have we got? I don't think we're in a collection. I've got a motorbike still. I went back into motorbikes a little bit. Hardly ride it because it's just too much traffic now. So I bought an old BMW GS 1150, like an adventure bike. But, 200 or 300 miles a year is like the most I do on that. Then I bought, about a year ago, Ferrari 512 TR. So I did actually eventually get to the Testarossa, what I really always wanted.
It's not an unusual. Sorry, this is an unusual one, isn't it?
It is. It came up for sale through COVID, through a dealer. And I didn't really read much of the history about the car, but it was a unique one-off colour scheme. It's in a blue with a full red interior, which is a bit Marmite. I mean, some people might think it's too much, but it grows on you. The more you have the car, I think, the more you think, yeah, it looks perfect in it. Blue and red.
Tell me about this earlier in the year. I mean, did you say it was the only ever made one?
Only one in this colour scheme, yeah. So it's the only one, and it's out of 100 right and drive cars, it's rare to find a nice obscure colour in a right and drive car. Most of them are red with creme or red with black or tan. It is a really cool car, and I saw it up for sale and I just couldn't afford it. I just bought the Noble, and me and my friend looked at going halves on it, and I just thought, it's just too much money. I think it was about 160,000 quid back in 2021 or something like that, and it was up for sale for a couple of years. I assumed it sold. And then I got a phone call off one of your members actually and saying, I've just seen this car and it's right up your street. I said, yeah, I know that car. It's one I've always wanted. And he says, well, contact this Nick Cartwright's in Matlock Ferrari again. I said, I had his mobile number already. And I said, yeah, I'll give him a ring. Rang him and says, yeah, I know where it's stored. It's in storage and there's a customer of ours owns it. It's going to auction. Are you interested? I said, yes, if you can pull it from auction. I don't want to buy it at auction. There's fees involved. So I went to view it one Thursday night, and I got a little spreadsheet on my phone of all the gearbox serial numbers, engine serial numbers, because I did a lot of upgrades on them over the years, and it had all the right numbers that I wanted for this stronger gearbox, because I've been known for having weak gearboxes on the early ones. So we shook hands on a deal, and it took them 11 months to recommission it. It had been stood for like 20 years nearly.
Right, yeah.
And I got it back May this year, so I bought it June last year, and I got it back just before my 50th birthday, which was a nice present to myself, really. And we've put about 4,000 miles on it since I've had it. So I'm using it quite a lot. I nearly came in it today, but I was like, it's a little bit too wet.
Yeah.
And that car, we've gone through it. We've just had it in our workshop because one of the things I do, we run a classic car garage as well, restoring cars and Rotherham. And we do a lot of TVRs, Lotuses and Ferraris and old Porsches and things. So I've been running my cars through the garage at the moment because I can't fix them quick enough myself.
Yeah.
There's too many cars now, too many faults. So I'm just saying, if we've got a slot, put a car in and just work on it solid until it's done. Get them 100%.
Yeah.
So that's 99% done. I've got a few more jobs to do over winter, and that one's done then.
That's just awesome, because obviously you going back to early in your story, you were talking about obviously how you got into cars. And you're obviously playing Outrun now, for those that don't know where, the Testarossa is the car you're driving in Outrun. And that's kind of like, it's sunk into you that early stage that you've actually got through life and actually managed to own the car for real. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's, to me, the 90s and 80s Ferraris are the iconic Ferraris to me. And like a Testarossa from Outrun and Test Drive on the computer game original one. That's the most iconic Ferrari to me, not an F40. It's the slats up the side, the flat back end. And people still say, no, that's a massive car. And you go, no, it's small now compared to modern things. It's minute.
Yeah.
But to me, you look at it and it's stunning. And you guys took some beautiful photos at Beaucliffe Hall this year of it. And it's like, they're my favourite photos of that car now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. And to see one in that colour scheme, like you say, it's a very rare spot.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it was nice to get up close with it at Beaucliffe. It's immaculate. Absolutely immaculate. Stunning.
4,000. Well, I think when I bought it, it had 3,800 kilometres on the clock.
Wow.
And you just can't believe it. It had been stood in Malaysia for 16 years in an underground garage or something.
Really? Wow.
And I'm trying to piece a history together. And then a guy in England bought it and he spent a fortune on it and he didn't fix everything. And he basically just did MOT mileage every year, just trying to keep it running. And then he just gave up with it and then said, I need to sell it. And then Nick Cartwright literally went through the entire car and I'll buy it as long as everything works and it's this set price. And it actually lost some money in the end. It was so many things wrong with the car and missing.
Again, the car famous in Miami Vice. Because they if I remember the story in Miami Vice, I read it somewhere, is that they had the car and it came in a certain colour, but they decided to paint it white themselves because it looked better on camera, because obviously most of their footage is filmed at night. And then obviously Ferrari looked, oh, it looks nice, we'll start making them in white afterwards, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they had a Daytona replica for the Miami Vice first 2 seasons, and Enzo Ferrari knew it was a replica, and he threatened to sue him, I think. And he said, but I'll give you 2 Testarossas, one for Don Johnson and one for the filming. And they were both black, and it just didn't work in Miami at night. So we painted them both white. And it's just such a car from that TV series. It makes that TV series.
Definitely.
3rd season when it comes out and we get the Testarossa, and you think, oh, it's amazing. So yeah, it's watching that and playing Outrun, it's I had to have a 512 TR one day. I think the Testarossa is a little bit too old style for me, and the 512, because it's a 90s one, they just smooth the lines up, improved all the little issues it had.
You still got pop-ups though, haven't you?
So I've got pop-ups, because I nearly bought a 512M in 2023, and I looked at it and I thought the wheels are wrong, the headlights are wrong, and the tail lights are wrong.
Yeah.
And there's no real difference between the two cars apart from the aesthetics.
It makes a difference.
Yeah. And then I got the opportunity of a blue one, red one, and it's just like, yeah.
There was one in Motor World in Munich when we were there this year. And I think it's testament to how special the car is that you're surrounded by Bugattis and loads of other incredible cars. And that car still stood out. It caught your eye immediately. It was, it's definitely a very special car.
You need to have a passenger ride in it.
Count me in.
Yeah.
Not today, it's too wet today,
No.
but count me in.
It's a good car.
To be honest, you won't get any car with him unless it's got a roll cage.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Just before we finish, I wanted just to go back to the Noble.
Yes.
I know that you're very good at repairing the cars, but sometimes getting the parts for them is quite a difficult thing. And I know that you're always on the lookout. Well, you can tell the story yourself, but I guess, finding parts for that car is getting increasingly difficult, isn't it?
Well, I'm known for having, I think it stems from a crash of a GT6. Since then, I seem to have a problem where I need to buy spares for every car I own. So I own loads of Lotus Colton spares, loads of Diablo spares. I'm collecting bits for the 512 TR now. I've got lots of Renault Alpine bits and bobs. And with the Noble, because there's only made sort of 28 worldwide, it's like there's very few spares at the factory. So I've ended up buying spare sets of wheels, having clutches remanufactured. So I had the last 2 clutches remanufactured by AP.
Wow.
Bought the last set of windscreens. But yeah, I did a tour earlier this year in the borders of Scotland, and I'd recommend anyone do the borders.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's the
one
best
of our
roads in the
favourites
UK.
as well. Definitely.
Forget Wales, Scotland, borders, brilliant tour. And I've done the borders many times, and I had a slight mishap where I spun my car through a section. And I didn't know it were going to spin. It just literally snapped and went round. I mean, I didn't get the clutch in quick enough. And going backwards at about 60 on a B road didn't help. So it sort of destroyed the clutch and damaged the gearbox input shaft. So you think, all right, we'll pull this out in our garage. We'll pull the gearbox out. And the clutch literally disintegrated. The spigot bearing had gone in the end of the crank. Main input shaft bearings had literally lost all the bearings into the box. But the car drove perfectly, just made weird noises. So I thought, well, the box is fundamentally good and the differential, but I need another box now or to repair one. And there's only 2 brand new boxes available and a couple of second-hand boxes in the world. But luckily, the guy who looked after the Noble for me on the ECU software, used to work at Noble, he had a spare gearbox sort of lying around in his kitchen. As you do.
As you do.
Yeah. And it's probably taken me about a year to get the gearbox out of him. But once I had the accident, he was like, I was putting a lot more pressure on him. Can I buy this gearbox off? I really need it now. Let's get this car out. And eventually, while I went into on the Diablo trip, he said, I'll sell it you. 12 grand. Bargain. So it's a Graziano Enzo gearbox from Ferrari with just different input shaft and different differential ratios. So it's a rare box. It probably cost about 20k to repair this Noble, and doing it ourselves at our garage. And just in parts and a bit of labour through the garage. But it drives beautifully, and I've done 1,000 miles in it now, and it's better than it ever was. It still has its issues because it's Noble. Cuts out randomly at junctions, and occasionally you get odd weird issues with it, but what a great car that Noble is. Yeah, we've had it on several drives with us, and we've seen it spitting fire and all sorts. It's it doesn't get much raw. Like, it's a really raw car, isn't it? It doesn't get much better than that, really. Yeah, it's everything you want out of a performance car on a dry day. I mean, I'm luckily it's got 3 engine maps. So if you leave it in 450 mode, I would say any weather, any driver could pretty much drive it fairly fast. But you knock it up onto its full power mode, 740, when you're anti-lag. It's scary. It still scares me now. Pick your moments of getting that throttle down. I remember it took me a month before I could use full power. I could hold that throttle down. It's it's like being in the Millennium Falcon, as Chris Harris put it.
Yeah.
There's a video of him driving it around the Nürburgring, and it's just, he's hitting over 200 mile an hour on the straights. It's a quick car.
It's so light as well, isn't it? It doesn't weigh
1,100
much
kilos.
at all. Yeah.
A bit lighter than Millennium Falcon then.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah. That's the nearest thing I can describe it to. Your third and fourth gear on full boost, it just pushes you back in your seat, and it just does not let up. It just keeps going, and it gets to the point you're like, this is too quick.
Yeah.
And you'll see a McLaren in front of you doing an overtake, and you have to give it 2 seconds in front, because you can't hit full throttle, because you'll catch the car at what's on full power already. It's that quick. But then it's a braking, because you've got no ABS and the pedal's rock solid. It's very hard to judge your braking, I find. You probably need to be a racing driver to drive it to its full potential. It's definitely not me.
Well, yeah, after your car history, thank you for coming on the podcast, but also I'm just glad that you're still alive.
Yeah.
There's been a few near misses.
Yes, yeah. I always try to take people out in the car and show them what it can do. It's definitely, it's a good car to go out in.
Now I look forward to it. Have you been in it?
I've not been in it, no.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Been
Well,
out when we've done the shoots, but
Yeah.
other than that, not been in it. But if there's ever an opportunity, count me in.
Yeah. I'm happy to take anyone out in it. It's same with Diablo and Scud. I think anyone who's working their way up through the car buying process, it's like sports cars and supercars. I'd say if you can go old school. It's more involved as a driver. You drive a modern McLarens and Ferraris and Porsches, it's quite soulless. But I know they've not experienced anything else, so they think it's great. But if you put you into an old school Ferrari or an old school Porsche or Lambo, it's so much more involved.
Is there any modern stuff that takes your fancy? 'Cause obviously all your collection is in that classic sort of era.
I would say I would love to. I mean, I drove a 12-cylinder yesterday, and it was beautiful. It drove absolutely stunningly, but it was quiet. No engine noise whatsoever, unless you like over 5,000 RPM. So it's how do you get that enjoyment out of driving a modern car?
Yeah.
But yes, I feel like I would like to buy like a modern Turbo S for just knocking around in or something.
Yeah.
What's capable for wet weather instead of driving a van what I drive every day.
Yeah, at least you've got the electronics to save you for something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have every car if I could, but it's just...
I'm really glad you asked that question because I almost forgot to ask. It's the end question of the podcast, and I know it's one that you've been deliberating over a little bit.
You've caused me so much stress with the question.
The Dream 3-car garage, but we will allow a few extras if you're really struggling.
Really? You're not lock it down to 3. Be cruel.
Okay, the Dream 3-car garage. With one extra if you need to.
Well, I'm going to break the rules and say, could I keep my caddy van?
Yeah,
as a day.
That's fine.
That's all right.
That's all right.
That's fine.
So I need my van to pick up like bags of cement from Wickes or something like that.
Yeah.
So
no problem.
Instantly, I knew what car would have to the list as first car. Bugatti Tourbillon.
Okay.
Because you just think that is going to be the most beautiful looking everyday supercar you could have possibly owned.
Yeah.
It'll just do everything. You could go shopping in it, I'm guessing. You could tour Europe in it. You could do events where you turn up and people just look at it and go, that's
incredibly
artwork.
rare. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I feel like it's like the modern Audi sort of Bugatti sort of thing. It's usable. It's a usable hypercar, supercar. Your partner's going to get in and out of it. You'll have luxury. The gauge cluster, if you've seen the videos of a gauge cluster working.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
That was instant.
Itself.
As soon as you sent me that question, I knew straight away that would be the dream car in the garage. And then it went to Coghlan because you just think, 3 cars, I've only got 2 spaces left. Do I give up the Diablo? Do I give up the Noble? And you think, because I buy cars for reasons, like, the Scud of the Noble or for driving spiritedly on tours. The Diablo and the Testarossas for turning up to more static events where you're parked in a nice Grantley Hall lawn or Beaucliffe Hall.
Yeah.
You need something that looks better than a modern car, so you go old school. And I really dilemmaed over it for a long, long time. And I came down to the Mercedes CLK GTR.
Okay.
In the 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I thought, I use that as a bit of a track toy.
Yeah.
It's super rare. I'm never going to be able to afford to own one. So in this dream car garage, that would stand out. I think they did one with a green leather with a tartan. So I think that would be a cool interior. And they sound pretty crazy. So that was the second car. And then the third car, I can't come up with an answer. So if you could cycle them out, so I think maybe your viewers and listeners should really comment and say what the third car should be.
Okay.
Because I came up with Group B rally cars, Audi Quattros, Lancia Delta L37s. I mean, you think, no, I fancy a Le Mans race car, so maybe a Venturi LM600 or a Porsche 918.
So your dream 3-car garage is a 2-car garage with space for a third one.
Yeah, because I can't decide. Because if you made the rules that you can't ever sell these cars, then you'd be like, I'm never going to be happy. But if I could swap the third car in and out constantly, I'd do that.
That's a great way to break the rule. That is that 3-car garage. 3-car garage that can change.
Because giving up the Diablo would be hard. And Testarossa.
Yeah.
But you think, an XJ220. So
incredibly rare.
That would fit in your garage quite.
It's because
that's a big car.
Yeah,
it's big.
Yeah. Because my current collection is what I can possibly afford as my dream car garage.
Yeah.
Minus a couple of cars I'm missing what I would like to own. But having that real unrealistic expectation of owning hundreds of millions of pounds to buy and you don't want to buy what every other multi-millionaire buys. They always buy the Holy Trinity. They buy 9118 Carrera GTs, F40s. You go to every big supercar meet and they're all the same cars there, so you've got to go different. So that's why the Bugatti and the Mercedes CLK GTR. That's my reasoning behind it.
Well, for the listeners, we need a third car to add to that garage. So comment on YouTube and tell us what you would have. But thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And if you're looking for an SUK tour to join next year, we'd really recommend the Pyrenees. Go to supercarrunner.co.uk and sign up there. So thank you for joining us on this Christmas special, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Looking for your next car event, club, or venue? Find it with carevents.com. Discover thousands of upcoming events, car clubs, and car venues on the world's biggest car events platform. Search by location and radius, favorite your events, buy event tickets with these, and follow your favorite clubs and venues to be the first to hear about their upcoming events. For event organizers, you can list events, clubs, and venues free of charge, sell tickets directly in the app, and track the performance of your event. Available online and in your app store. Just search Car Events.